Chapter 1. The Slave Beneath the Sun's In the beginning there was only dust, dust and suns that never set. And beneath those twin infernos, in a place where no green dared grow, a child opened his eyes, not into life, but into servitude. Tatooine, a world beyond the reach of Republic law, beyond the touch of justice. A scar in the fabric of the galaxy where crime ruled, where traders dealt in blood, and where the Force itself held its breath. There, in the shadow of rusted junkyards and the moaning wind, a woman gave birth. Her name was Shmi, and though the galaxy did not know her, the Force did. She bore no husband, spoke no father's name. She simply said the child had no father. And though none believed her, none dared question the mystery, because the Force stirred around the boy like a storm, gathering above a sleeping sea. She named him Anakin. The name echoed across time like a faint bell, not yet a prophecy, not yet a curse. The boy grew beneath the cruelty of a Toydarian slaver named Watto. His hands blistered from labor, his back bent from orders barked without mercy. But in his eyes burned something unnatural. He raced through the streets of Mos Espa, barefoot and wild, spoke of ships before he ever flew one, repaired droids with hands too small to hold tools. He dreamed, not like children dream, but like prophets dream, of stars, of water, of freedom, and in the darkest hours of night, the Force listened. It listened as the boy whispered to broken droids, listened as he built from scrap a machine that would one day walk beside his doom. It listened as he stared at the stars and muttered names he had never heard before. And it stirred far away, on a world of green and cities floating in light. A Jedi Master named Qui-Gon Jinn boarded a vessel, drawn not by orders, but by instinct. He did not yet know why the Force called him to the Outer Rim. He did not yet know that what he would find would shake the foundation of the Jedi Order and burn a scar into the future of the galaxy. He followed only a feeling. He followed a ripple in the Force that pulsed like the warning of an earthquake long buried. When Qui-Gon met the boy, he did not see a slave. He saw balance. He saw raw potential wrapped in chains. And when he tested the child's blood, the results whispered madness. Over 20,000 midichlorians, more than Yoda, more than any Jedi in history. And still, the boy smiled, unaware that he was the fracture point in the galaxy's fragile future. Unaware that he was not just born, but placed. The Force did not move randomly. It had called Anakin into existence. Not through love, not through family, but through will. Some called it the Chosen One prophecy, whispered of by ancient Jedi, feared even in secret archives. He would bring balance, but no one ever agreed on what that balance would be. Some believed it meant the destruction of the Sith. Others feared it meant the end of the Jedi, the Council. Veiled in light, but heavy with arrogance, refused Qui-Gon's request to train the boy. Yoda felt danger. Mace Windu sensed fear. They did not see the boy, they saw the shadow standing behind him. And yet Qui-Gon persisted, for he had not followed orders in many years. He followed only the will of the Force, even when it defied the doctrine of his own kind. And as Anakin left Tatooine, a slave no longer, his mother stood in silence. She watched him disappear into the sky, proud, afraid, weeping without sound. The chain that bound her son had broken. But the Force, ancient and patient, had forged a new one, not of iron, but of destiny. In the night that followed, Shmi dreamed. She dreamed of a man in black armor. She dreamed of fire. She dreamed of her son returning, not as a boy, but as a blade. And in her heart, something began to wither. On Coruscant, in the cold marble halls of the Jedi Temple, Anakin walked, like a ghost among children. He was older than them, stronger, stranger. He did not belong. The walls whispered nothing to him. The Force, once gentle on Tatooine, now curled around him in silence. And far above them all, beyond the Senate towers, the shadow moved. Watching, waiting, it wore a human face. It smiled as the child arrived. It smiled because it had waited a long, long time. And now the peace had entered the board. The Jedi had taken the boy to protect him. But in truth, they had delivered him not into safety, but into prophecy. Not into light, but into the waiting arms of the dark. The twin suns of Tatooine still burned. But the galaxy grew colder, and somewhere deep in the Force, something whispered, he was born not free, but fated. And fate is the cruelest chain of all. Chapter 2, the prophecy of the broken balance. The Force, ancient and formless, had long whispered of balance, but none who spoke of it truly understood its meaning. Balance, the Jedi claimed, meant the absence of darkness. But to the Force itself, balance was not peace, it was equilibrium, and equilibrium often came through destruction. Long ago, before the Republic's golden age, before the rule of two, there were prophets among the Jedi, not warriors, not generals, but mystics who spoke in riddles, touched by visions, marked by madness. Their writings were buried beneath the Jedi archives. Their names were erased from the Council's memory, but their voices echoed still beneath the stones, within forgotten scrolls, in dreams that twisted Jedi sleep into nightmares. They spoke of a child born without a father, a vessel not of love, but of will, a child conceived by the Force itself. He would bring balance, he would end the darkness, but he would not walk only in the light. He would know love, and through love, fall. He would rise again, not as Jedi, not as Sith, but as something in between, and the galaxy would burn before it healed. This was the prophecy of the Chosen One, and it terrified the Jedi more than the Sith ever did. When Qui-Gon Jinn placed the boy before the High Council, silence fell. Anakin stood, small and serious, in robes too large for him, his eyes wide with uncertainty. He spoke of visions. He felt things no one had taught him. He had dreams of people he had never met, of worlds he had never seen. And the Council, for all its power, grew uncomfortable. He is too old, Master Windu said. There is fear in him, said Master Yoda. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. They knew these paths. They had walked them. Before, they had seen once bright Jedi fall like meteors into the dark, and they saw the signs in this child, not years from now, but already blooming. Qui-Gon stood alone. He spoke not only of power, but of destiny. He said the prophecy had found its vessel. He said the Force had chosen this boy, but the Council, ancient and proud, could not see beyond their rules. They were bound to the code, and the code was bound to fear. They did not know that far beyond the temple walls, another watched the child with interest. Darth Sidious, hidden beneath the face of Chancellor Palpatine, moved his pieces with infinite patience. He knew the prophecy too. He had studied the same forbidden texts, had unearthed ancient Sith scripts buried on Malachor and Moraband. He had found the same warnings and the same promise to the Sith. Balance did not mean harmony. It meant the death of the Jedi. It meant the end of the light's tyranny. Palpatine saw in the boy not a chosen one, but a weapon, a blade he would sharpen slowly. He would let the Jedi mold the hilt, but he would forge the edge. And so Anakin's training began. Not because the Council believed, but because they feared the cost of refusing. Obi-Wan, newly knighted, took him as Padawan, not from desire, but from duty. He had promised Qui-Gon with his dying breath, and so the Jedi bound themselves to prophecy, not with hope, but with doubt. They welcomed the boy while distrusting him, and in doing so, they divided the Force. For years, Anakin trained under rules meant for children raised from birth. But he was not born in the temple. He was born in chains. He loved too deeply, questioned too boldly, felt too fiercely. And the Jedi taught him to suppress what the Force had amplified. They taught detachment, but the Force had given him attachment. They taught obedience, but he was born from Wildot, and every time he buried a feeling, something inside him cracked. The holocrons whispered. Late at night, he walked the temple alone. He read things not meant for his eyes. He felt the pulse of the past, of Sith slain, of Jedi betrayed. He dreamed of darkness, not with terror, but with familiarity. He began to question why the Jedi feared prophecy, why they would name him the Chosen One, then chain his destiny. The Council offered lessons. Palpatine offered understanding. The Chancellor called him son in private. He praised his instincts, not his restraint. He spoke of power as not a danger, but a right. And in those quiet conversations, a seed was planted. A seed watered, not by hatred, but by love, fear, and uncertainty. The Jedi watched this bond grow and said nothing. Their silence was their arrogance. Their arrogance was their undoing, for the Force does not speak in commands. It whispers in fractures, and the Jedi, blind in their tower of light, failed to see how deeply they were already breaking. The prophecy still loomed. The boy still walked between destinies, and behind every lesson, a shadow watched, waiting, smiling, knowing, the Force had not made a mistake. It had made a wound, and that wound would never heal. Chapter 3. The Trial of the Shrouded Temple. The Jedi Temple stood high upon Coruscant's sacred plateau, a citadel of marble and silence, bathed in the cold light of 1,000 hollow victories. To the galaxy, it was a place of wisdom. To the Jedi, it was sanctuary. But to the Force, it had become a sealed tomb, where truths were buried and shadows were ignored. Anakin walked its ancient corridors, not as a student of destiny, but as an intruder. The temple rejected him in silence. Its halls, carved by forgotten builders in the time before light and dark, whispered the names of those who belonged. And though he memorized the rituals, recited the code, and fought with the skill of warriors, twice his age, Anakin never heard his own name echoed back. He felt it in the walls, cold judgment. Not hatred, worse, doubt, and the Force around him grew quiet. They gave him robes, they gave him a lightsaber, they gave him rules, but they never gave him acceptance. He was the outsider, the exception, the storm behind the stained glass. The Jedi Order had forgotten how to see with the Force. They saw through councils, ranks, permissions. They tested younglings with tradition, not with trust. And when they could not control Anakin, they labeled him dangerous. They saw his visions as affliction, his emotions as weakness, his will as threat. But beneath the temple, sealed in catacombs, lit only by memory, ancient holocrons murmured another story. They spoke of Jedi who had walked alone, who had heard both sides of the Force and gone mad, who had glimpsed the balance and been cast out. They spoke of the shroud, a dark veil rising over the galaxy, unseen even by the wise. It was not smoke, it was silence. And in that silence, the Sith returned, not with sabers drawn, but with masks of civility. Anakin began to dream differently, not of stars, but of faces. Obi-Wan in flames, Yoda weeping, Padme crying blood, and always, always, the sound of a breathing mask, mechanical, inhuman, endless. He asked the masters what these dreams meant. They told him to meditate, to let go, to silence the voice that was trying to warn him. But the voice grew louder. Obi-Wan trained him with care, but not with understanding. He taught control, not healing. And Anakin, desperate to be seen, began to hide. He buried his visions. He smiled when he was broken. He obeyed while burning inside. And all the while, Palpatine watched in the shadows of Senate chambers. He fed the boy quiet encouragement. He called the Jedi rigid. He said Anakin's power was not a curse, it was destiny. He spoke of greatness, of legends. He said the boy would become more than a Jedi. He would become a savior. And Anakin believed him, because the temple never spoke to him that way, because the Jedi never looked at him that way, because he had been a slave, and only Palpatine made him feel free. The High Council grew uneasy. They saw the closeness. They debated in hushed tones, but they acted with silence, and the silence grew into cracks, cracks that split the temples. Sacred foundations. One night, as rain fell upon the spires, Anakin descended into the meditation vaults. He sought guidance. He sought peace, but he found only echoes there, beneath the murals of ancient Jedi victories. He stood in stillness and saw himself, not as a Padawan, not as a knight, but as a shadow, cloaked in black. Alone, feared, powerful, he looked down. A red saber flickered in his hand, and across from him, Obi-Wan knelt, defeated, dying. Anakin screamed. The vision shattered. The vault returned to silence. But the image remained. He told no one, not Obi-Wan, not the Council, not even Padme, because part of him, a small, trembling part, believed it was true. The temple, once his refuge, had become a trial, not of combat, but of identity. And the more he tried to be what they wanted, the more the Force whispered of what he truly was. The walls watched, the statues listened. The stars above turned their faces, and somewhere deep in the temple's forgotten archives, a single holocron flickered to life without touch. Its voice, ancient and broken, spoke only 7 words. The Chosen One shall destroy the Order. Chapter 4. The Phantom in the Cenotherot did not begin in the shadows. It began beneath chandeliers, beneath polished floors and golden robes. It began in the Senate. There, in a dome of light built to resemble unity, voices thundered in. Chaos. Planets begged for aid. Sectors demanded protection. Votes turned into weapons. And behind it all, one man spoke softly. Chancellor Palpatine. He was not feared. He was loved. A guardian of peace. A servant of democracy. A voice of reason in a time of disorder. But the Force did not listen to words. It listened to intent. And Palpatine's intent was not unity. It was control. He walked among the Jedi as a friend. He praised their valor, mourned their losses, dined in their temples. But beneath his robes, a second voice breathed, a voice buried by time, a name not spoken since the fall of Darth Bane. Darth Sidious. He had no need for armies, not yet. He conquered through patience. He touched the minds of senators, governors, corporations. He whispered of war not to end it, but to birth it. He found Count Dooku, a Jedi master disillusioned by rot, and offered him clarity through the dark. He found factories hidden on Geonosis, clones bred in secret on Camino, droids forged in the foundries of greed. He created both sides of a war, and waited for the galaxy to ask him to rule it. The Jedi did not see him, because he hid in the center, because they believed darkness lived only on the edges. Anakin visited him often, not as a Jedi, as a son seeking a father. Palpatine spoke of visions, of how Jedi once embraced love, of how the dark side was not evil, only honest, and slowly, thread by thread, he rewrote Anakin's soul, not with commands, but with sympathy, with trust, with the one thing the Jedi never gave him, unconditional belief. When Anakin returned from war-torn systems, broken and bloodied, it was not Obi-Wan who listened. It was not Windu, it was Palpatine. He called the Jedi blind. He called the Council corrupt. And in his voice, Anakin heard the truth he feared to admit. The war, too, grew louder. Systems seceded. Worlds burned. Jedi died in battles they never asked for, and every Jedi death made the Republic beg for more power, for more soldiers, for more control, and so the Senate gave it. To him, each vote, each emergency motion, gave Palpatine another key to the prison he was building. Not around the galaxy, but around the Jedi. He appointed governors. He created security forces. He erased oversight. And the galaxy, desperate for peace, cheered his every move. In the temple, the council grew wary. They sensed darkness. They felt the shroud tightening. But they could not name it, because naming it would mean hearing what they already knew. Anakin, now a war hero, was caught between two masters. One who trained him to obey. One who told him he was destined to lead. The council did not trust him. So they used him. They ordered him to spy on the Chancellor. They made him a pawn in their political war. And Anakin, shattered by loyalty, began to fracture. He loved them both. He hated them both. And the Force trembled beneath the weight of his uncertainty. The galaxy watched with blind eyes. The Jedi fought a war they could not win. And above them, untouched by blood or flame, sat a phantom, smiling, calculating, waiting. And on the night the Senate granted him emergency powers, when thousands of systems rose to salute him, when the Republic gave him everything it once feared, Palpatine looked out from his office, across the city of towers and fire, and whispered one word: soon. Chapter 5. The Clone War. Right, the galaxy burned. Not all at once, but in spirals, in waves of fire, in flashes of betrayal disguised as duty. War spread like a sacred plague, and the Jedi led it. They called it the Clone War, but it was not a war. It was a ritual, a rite of passage for the end of an age. And every battle was a sacrifice. The Republic, desperate to survive, embraced the army they had not created, an army grown in silence, cloned from a bounty hunter with no allegiance, each soldier identical, each one loyal, each one bound not by choice but by programming. They were not droids, they were men, born to die for a cause they never chose. The Jedi, once keepers of peace, became generals, not through desire, but through silence. They accepted the burden, and with it, they accepted their own end. Anakin Skywalker rose quickly through the ranks. He fought like a storm, no hesitation, no mercy. He led battalions into darkness and came out bloodied but victorious. To the Senate, he was a hero. To the clones, he was a brother. To the Jedi, he was a question they feared to answer. He saved lives, but he also took them. He disobeyed orders to protect those he loved. He destroyed entire ships to save one friend, and each act, while noble in his heart, drew him further from the path the Jedi had laid before him. He began to see war not as a burden, but as clarity. On the battlefield, there were no doubts, only choices, only survival. And in that simplicity, he found freedom. But the Force recoiled. The temples of old cracked. The holocrons whispered of imbalance. And far away, the Sith smiled Palpatine. Ever watching, grew closer. He asked questions the Council would not. He praised Anakin's instincts, not his obedience. He spoke of a greater destiny. And all the while, Anakin's dreams grew darker. Visions came like storms. His mother, screaming, a blade he could not see. Padme, crying, clutching her swollen belly. And then, silence. Every dream ended in death. He tried to bury them. He tried to meditate. But the dreams grew stronger. And the Jedi gave him nothing but empty words. They told him to let go, but he could not, because he had already lost too much in secret. He returned to Tatooine. His mother had been taken by raiders. By the time he found her, her body was already broken. She died in his arms, whispering his name, and something inside Anakin shattered. The man who left her grave was not the same, who had arrived. He returned to war not as a Jedi, but as a blade. He spoke less, he fought harder. He smiled only for Padme, and far above the galaxy Sidious waited. He saw the pain, he saw the rage, he saw the fire rising behind Anakin's eyes. The war dragged on. Grievous, Dooku, skirmishes, ambushes, losses, and every Jedi death made the Council more desperate. More blind, Anakin became a symbol. But symbols are not people, they are tools, and he began to feel it. Not just the doubt, but the manipulation. He stood between two masters, one who feared what he could become, and one who embraced it. The Jedi gave him orders. The Chancellor gave him choice. And in the darkness between the stars, in the blood and smoke of the battlefield, Anakin Skywalker heard a new voice growing louder within. You were not made to serve. You were made to decide. Chapter 6. The dream of Vapodthea was once a Jedi who danced with darkness and did not fall. He did not fear the storm. He became it. His name was Mace Windu, and his dream was a blade. Vopod was not a form. It was a gate. A vortex that drew in the fury of others and turned it back with clarity. It was the seventh form of lightsaber combat, and only one had ever mastered it without losing himself. Windu created it, not to kill, but to survive. He knew the galaxy had changed. The Sith no longer wore hoods in the shadows. They wore smiles. In the Senate, and the Jedi, bound by ancient codes, refused to see. Mace Windu saw everything. He saw the corruption. He saw the war. He saw the whispers that slithered behind every peace treaty. And in the heart of battle, he saw his own reflection. A warrior who moved with precision, not mercy. A mind that struck like judgment, not peace. And still, the Council called it balance. But Windu knew. He knew what Anakin was becoming. He knew the dreams that haunted the boy's sleep. He knew the whispers of the Chancellor. And still, he watched, because Windu believed in control. Even when the Force screamed in warning, Anakin felt it. The cold gaze, the unspoken suspicion. He felt like a weapon under observation, not a Jedi under guidance. And in his heart, resentment took root. Vopet burned. Windu's lightsaber strikes were not wild. They were calculated, purposeful, filled with finality. He did not fear the dark side. He dared it to touch him, because he believed in justice above all. But justice is not mercy. It is judgment. And so, when the day came that Anakin stood before the council, and was told he would sit not as a master, but as a spy, something broke. The council wanted him to watch to betray the man who would become a father to him, and Windu did not defend him. He only watched, not with anger, but with disappointment, as if the boy had already chosen the wrong path. Anakin left that chamber with his fists clenched. He did not shout. He did not protest. He simply remembered. He remembered the desert. He remembered slavery. He remembered the screams of his mother. And he remembered that the Jedi had done nothing. Windu, in his meditations, saw a storm rising, but he believed the Republic could still be saved. If the Chancellor was the Sith, then justice must be swift. He did not take the entire order. He chose 3. He marched to the Chancellor's office, and he gave no speeches, no pleasantries. In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest. Palpatine smiled, and then the storm broke. The Sith Lord revealed himself not in words, but in fire. The blade of crimson. Light ignited, and 3 Jedi fell before they could breathe. Windu held the line. Vopet ignited, and for a moment it looked like the darkness would break. Windu fought with precision. Every strike mirrored the fury of the Sith, turned inward. Every movement was a mirror, and in that mirror, Sidious faltered. He was driven to the edge, weaponless, scarred, writhing, and Windu stood tall, blade raised for the final blow. But the dream was ending. Behind him, Anakin arrived, breathing heavy, eyes wide. He saw a Sith, broken. He saw a Jedi ready to strike. And he saw Pagam dying in a vision he could not erase. The Jedi had told him to let go. But this man, this monster, held the secret to her life. Windu did not see the boy's heart breaking. He saw only a risk. He spoke the words, "He must die," and Anakin, in a scream of desperation, made his choice. The blade fell. Windu's hand was severed. Lightning surged, and the Master of Vopet was thrown from the heights of Coruscant into darkness. The dream was shattered. The gate was broken, and balance tilted toward fire in silence. The Sith rose. Chapter 7 whispers in the womb of Unabio, Otha Lake of Naboo, shimmered under twin moons. Soft ripples kissed the marble steps of Varakino. Above, the night whispered promises it could not keep. Anakin stood alone on the balcony. His metal hand clutched the railing as if the stone could anchor him. The wind carried the scent of water and flowers, but all he smelled was fear. Inside, Podum waited. Her silhouette glowed against the golden light of the villa. She was calm, radiant, almost untouchable. But to Anakin, she was already a memory slipping through his fingers. They had married here, in silence, defying law and order, a secret vow beneath the stars. No witnesses but the Force itself. He had believed love could conquer the galaxy. Now he wondered if it would destroy it. Podmeth's laughter echoed faintly from within, a sound he once worshipped. Tonight, it cut him like glass, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw her die. The vision came without warning. Fire screams, her face pale and still. Blood on his hands, not from war, but from birth. The child crying. Padma, silent. Always silent. He turned from the balcony, forcing breath into his lungs. His boots clicked against the marble as he entered the room. Podman looked up, her smile soft, unaware of the storm raging behind his eyes. "You're restless again," she said. Anakin tried to smile. It cracked like old stone. "Just thinking about Coruscant." Her tone carried hope that he would speak of politics, of the war, of anything but death. But he only nodded and sat beside her. She reached for his hand. Warm flesh against cold durasteel. He hated the difference, hated what he had become. "Anakin," she whispered, "we're safe here. Safe." The word felt like a lie. Safety was an illusion, and the Force was tearing it apart. It whispered warnings he could not silence. It showed him endings he could not bear. He pressed a kiss to her hair, desperate, almost violent in its need. She didn't flinch. She trusted him. That trust burned hotter than Mustafa's fires, because he didn't deserve it. Not anymore. That night, sleep refused him. Shadows crawled across the ceiling like living things. He heard whispers, sibilant, cruel, not voices, but feelings. The Force itself, recoiling, twisting, screaming. He dreamt again, Padma on a medical table. Droids circling like vultures, her breath shallow, then gone. His hands drenched in crimson, the child wailing, the galaxy collapsing into silence. Anakin woke with a choked gasp. Sweat soaked his skin, his pulse hammered like war drums. He stumbled from the bed, leaving Padme sleeping in moonlight, innocent, fragile, dying. He gripped the balcony rail until the stone cracked. The stars above seemed distant, mocking. He called out in silence, a prayer to something that never answered. "I will not lose her." The words carved themselves into his soul like fire. It wasn't a hope, it was an oath. The same oath that had driven him to slaughter on Geonosis. The same oath that had led him to Sidious's door without knowing it. Behind him, Padme stirred, murmuring his name. He didn't turn, couldn't, because if he looked at her, he would break. And Anakin Skywalker didn't break. Not anymore. The womb of Naboo cradled more than life. It held a secret war, the battle between love and fate, between freedom and chains. And somewhere in that darkness, destiny twisted into something unrecognizable. The night deepened, the stars whispered, and far away, in the shadows of Coruscant, another whisper stirred. A promise waiting to be spoken. Chapter 8. The crimson PRMI Coruscant bled light into the night. Towers like black spears pierced the sky. Traffic hummed like distant thunder. Somewhere beneath it all, darkness waited not in the underworld, but in the highest office of the Republic. Anakin Skywalker walked alone through the Chancellor's chamber doors. His boots clicked against polished marble. The sound felt louder than cannon fire. Every step dragged the weight of his visions. Every breath tasted of iron and fear. Palpatine stood by the vast window, gazing at the endless city as if it were his to command. His hands clasped loosely behind his back, calm, always calm. A father waiting for his son. "You sent for me," Anakin said. Palpatine turned slowly, his smile warm, almost tender. "My boy, you seem troubled." Anakin stiffened. He wanted to deny it, but the words stuck like shards in his throat. Troubled? No. Drowning. The dream would not leave him. Padme dying in his arms. Blood like a river. He saw it every time he closed his eyes. He saw it now. Palpatine stepped closer, voice soft as silk. "You have seen death." Anakin froze. The words were a blade cutting through his soul. "What do you mean?" "I know you, Anakin, better than the Jedi ever could." His hand rose, light as a blessing, resting on Anakin's shoulder. "They will never understand your fear, your love." Anakin's jaw tightened. "I am not afraid." The Chancellor's smile deepened. "Lies are for the Senate, not for me. You fear losing her." The breath tore from Anakin's chest. For a heartbeat, the galaxy stopped. "How? How do you know?" "Because I know what it means to care." His voice lowered to a whisper, intimate, dangerous. "And I know how to stop death." The words hung in the air like a forbidden fruit. Anakin's heart slammed against his ribs. His voice broke. "What did you say?" "There are powers, Anakin. Powers the Jedi would never teach you. Powers that can keep her alive." His eyes gleamed not with malice, but with promise. A crimson dawn behind a velvet sky. "Join me, and together we can save her." Anakin stepped back. The room swayed. It felt like a dream. No worse, it felt real. Too real. This is the dark side. Palpatine's laughter was soft, almost pitying. The dark side, words, my boy. Empty words spoken by men who fear. What they do not control. Is it dark to save a life? Is it evil to protect the woman you love? Anakin's fists clenched. His pulse roared like fire, palmed alive. It was all he could see, all he could want. He sank to the edge of a precipice, and the abyss whispered sweetly. Palpatine's hand hovered before him, patient, inviting. "You can have this power. All I ask is your trust." The silence stretched like a blade between them. Breath shook. In his mind, he saw Padmé smile. Then he saw her corpse. He saw their child crying. He saw the galaxy burn. None of it mattered next to her death. He fell to his knees, not in fury, not in triumph, in grief. His head bowed like a man condemned. "Teach me," he whispered, the words cracking like glass. "I will do whatever you ask." Palpatine's smile curved like a scythe. His hand touched Anakin's head, almost tender. "Good, good." The voice that had been fatherly now dripped with hunger. "Rise, Lord Vader." The name slid into the air like a blade unsheathed. A crimson promise, silent yet deafening, echoed across the galaxy. Death itself would learn obedience. Far away, the stars trembled. Chapter 9. Fire in the House of Light. The Jedi Temple stood in silence. Its towers pierced the sky like spears of light, blind to the darkness already inside. The suns were setting, casting long shadows across the stone, but the true night would come from within. The gunship landed without warning. Republic colors, familiar, trusted. The gates opened. The clones marched in, and behind them came Anakin Skywalker. He walked slowly, hood drawn, saber silent. The guards did not question him. The temple welcomed him, not knowing it was already. Dead Dot inside younglings trained in the Hall of the Thousand Fountains. A boy saw him first. "Master Skywalker," he said, smiling. "There's too many of them. What are we going to do?" Anakin ignited his lightsaber. The scream that followed was short. The fountains ran red dot in the archives. Jocasta Nu reached for her staff. Too late. The blade passed through her midsection like wind through silk. Her final breath was a question. that never formed. Blast of fire echoed through sacred halls. Clones swarmed the chambers like locusts. They killed without anger, without joy, just precision. One by one, the statues of Jedi past fell. Monuments toppled, holocrons shattered. The wisdom of 1,000 years lost in seconds. The council chamber was empty. The chairs waited for masters who would never return. Anakin stood among them, staring at the sky through the glass. His saber hummed softly. Blood dripped onto the polished floor. Below, in the nursery, a child tried to hide. Her small frame pressed into a corner, hands covering her ears. She whispered to herself, a prayer, a plea. Anakin found her. Their eyes met, hers wide with terror, his empty dot. The blade lit the dark. Elsewhere, Shakti fought in the training room. A dozen clones lay dead around her. She turned and saw him. You. She began, then nothing. He moved like fire. Not a man, a storm, a shadow. The chosen one, now the destroyer. He did not speak. He did not stop. The Force screamed through him, but he no longer listened. Obi-Wan arrived after the silence. The temple was smoke and ash. Bodhis lay strewn like broken dreams. The young, the old, the wise all fallen. Even the trees in the meditation garden were scorched. He walked through it all in stunned silence, each step slower than the last. He could not speak, could not weep. The names caught in his throat. Kiadi, Plo Koon, Isla, even the children. He found a loricord, flickering, static. Skywalker, blade drawn, cutting down the helpless. His heart broke. Yoda stood beside him, smaller than ever. The shroud has fallen, he whispered. Obi-Wan could not answer. He could only watch the flames. The temple burned. Not with war, with cleansing. The light did not fade, it was ripped away. And the Force, once whole, shattered. Chapter 10. The duel beneath the black sun Mustafar burned. Rivers of fire carved scars across the black rock. The sky was ash and smoke, lit by a sun that glowed like molten iron. The air reeked of sulfur and death. This was no world for life, if only for endings. The ship descended through the storm, hissing as it touched the landing platform. Padme stepped out, robes whipping in the heat. Her face was pale with fear, eyes frantic with hope. She searched for him, the man she loved, the man she still believed could be saved, Anakin. Her voice tore against the roar of fire. He appeared from the shadows, who'd drawn low, eyes burning like twin suns gone mad. For a heartbeat, he seemed the same. The boy she had married, the knight who once dreamed of peace. Then he spoke, Pan. His voice was soft, almost tender, but under Italian, a will like stone. You're safe now. Everything will be fine. She ran to him, arms wrapping around his chest. He held her, rigid, trembling. For a moment, it felt like salvation. Then Obi-Wan stepped from the ramp. Anakin froze, his grip tightened. The heat between them became something worse than lava. Hatred that could burn the stars. You, the word was venom. You brought him here, Padme's breath caught. Anakin, please, you betrayed me. His voice cracked like thunder. His hand snapped out. The Force surged. Padme choked, lifted from the ground, her fingers clawing at invisible chains. Anakin, stop. Obi-Wan's cry broke through the storm. You're killing her. Anakin's teeth clenched. His heart shattered, even as his rage deepened. Then he let go. Padme collapsed at the deck, still breathing, barely. Obi-Wan stepped between them. lightsaber in hand, his face carved from grief. Anakin, don't make me do this. Anakin's blade ignited. Blue fire burned in the gloom. You will not take her from me. Obi-Wan's heart broke again. He raised his saber. I will do what I must. I will do what I want. The clash was thunder. Blue met blue, sparks exploding like stars colliding. The ground shook beneath their fury. They moved like mirrored ghosts, brother against brother. Love twisted into hate. They fought through the control room, sabers carving molten scars into steel. Consoles shattered. Lava flared beyond shattered windows. The duel was a storm, a tempest of light and shadow. Anakin, listen to me. Obi-Wan shouted over the roar. The Chancellor is evil. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Anakin's voice was raw, his rage a tidal wave. I see through the lies of the Jedi. I have brought peace, freedom, justice. You have brought death. The words hit harder than any strike. Anakin roared and drove forward. Their blades locked, faces inches apart, sweat and ash mingling. You were my brother. Obi-Wan's cry was pain turned weapon. I loved you. Anakin's answer was silenced, the scream of steel as he broke away, leaping through fire. They fought on the pipes above the lava, balanced between life and death. Blades flashing like lightning, sparks raining like meteors. The planet itself seemed to scream. Then the final ground, a black slope above a river of molten doom. Obi-Wan leapt, landed on high ground. His chest heaved. His saber hummed, steady, resolute. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. Anakin stood below, chest rising and falling like a beast. His eyes were suns of hatred and pain. You underestimate my power. Don't try it. He tried. The leap was desperate, defiant. A god reaching for immortality. Obi-Wan's blade fell swift and merciful. Limbs severed. The scream tore the sky. Anakin hit the slope, sliding toward the lava. Fire kissed his flesh. His hair ignited. His skin blackened. He clawed at the ash, eyes blazing even as his body died. I hate you. The roar was molten fury, the last cry of a man already gone. Obi-Wan's hands shook. Tears streaked his face. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. He turned away, could not watch, could not kill what was already dead. He left him burning, screaming, writhing in fire. Mustafar roared. The black sun sank. And from the ashes, something darker than night began to breathe. Chapter 11. The Mask and the Machine, Darkness. Anakin floated in it. No ground, no sky, no breath-only pain. Endless, burning. His body was a cage of fire and broken glass. He tried to scream, but no sound came. The scream lived inside him now, clawing at his bones. He remembered flames. A river of lava, Obi-Wan's face, carved from sorrow. The words, you were my brother, then heat, then nothing, until a voice, soft, cold, eternal, Lord Vader. The sound pierced the dark like a blade. Anakin tried to move, but the weight held him down. He felt metal on his skin. Needles, wires, breath that was not his own rasped somewhere close. You live, the voice said. It was not comfort. It was command. Anakin opened his eyes. The world was white, blinding, sterile. Shapes moved like shadows beyond glass. Droids, machines, tools humming like insects feeding on a corpse. His body was gone. What remained was ruin. Stumps where limbs had been. flesh scorched to charcoal. The smell, he could not escape it. His own skin cooking in memory. He tried to speak. His throat cracked like broken stone podman. Silence darts, then footsteps. Slow, certain. Sidious appeared. A hood of night draped over his corpse-pale face. His smile was thin, carved from shadow. Where is Padme? The question ripped from Anakin like a dying star. Sidious tilted his head. It seems, in your anger, you killed her. The words struck harder than any blade. For a moment, the pain vanished, swallowed by something worse. A void, a howl, a shattering. No, his voice broke. She was alive. I felt it. Sidious's smile widened, dripping poison. She is gone. You did that. Something inside Anakin snapped. Not like glass. Like a planet imploding. Rage roared through him, volcanic, absolute. The machines around him trembled. Metal screamed. Droids flew across the chamber, crushed by invisible hands. The bindings cracked, but new restraints locked down. Sidious raised a single clawed finger. Power, cold and merciless, wrapped around Vader's throat. Enough, the Emperor hissed. Your anger is your chains. Wear them well. The machines obeyed his command. They began their work. The sound came first, the hiss of saws, the whine of drills. His limbs were dragged away. New limbs, lowered black, gleaming, monstrous. The droids fused metal to bone, metal to nerve. Pain surged like fire and lightning through what remained of his body. He wanted death. It never came. Plates closed over his chest, sealing him in black iron. Wires pierced his spine. Tubes sank into what was left of his flesh. The helmet descended, like an eclipse. The world shrank. Darkness deepened. The mask kissed his burned skin. A hiss, then breath, deep, hollow, endless. The sound filled the chamber, a birth cry of steel. Darth Vader rose, not a man, a weapon, a shadow in armor. Every movement a scream hidden beneath metal. Every breath a prison. Sidious approached, a smile curving like a sickle moon. Rise, my friend. Vader obeyed. Slowly, trembling, towering above all. His body felt alien, heavy, cold. His soul felt worse chained, hollow, filled only with hate. He tried to speak. The voice that came was not his. A machine's growl popped him. Sidious's eyes gleamed like embers. It seems you killed her. The cry that tore from Vader's throat shook the walls. A sound no longer human. A sound that made even the droids freeze. Nuwu. It echoed through the sterile chamber, down the steel corridors, across the void. It rolled out into the stars, a howl of grief, rage, and ruin. And far beyond, the galaxy shuddered. Chapter 12. Shadows across the STRS. The galaxy slept beneath the weight of an iron fist. Worlds bent the knee. Systems surrendered without a fight. The Jedi were gone at least. That is what the Emperor wanted them to believe. But the shadows whispered otherwise. Some still lived. They ran. They hid. They prayed to a force that no longer answered. Darth Vader hunted them. His ship glided through the void like a blade, cold, silent, in the cockpit. He sat unmoving, a statue of black iron. The stars burned beyond the viewport, reflected in the obsidian curve of his mask. Each breath was a storm inside. His chest, hiss, exhale, hiss, exhale. The sound that haunted every corridor, every chamber, every nightmare. Reports came from the Inquisitors, murmurs of Jedi on distant moons. Temples defiled, archives bled of secrets. Vader listened in silence. He spoke only when needed. His voice, deep and mechanical, turned orders into law. Leave no trace. They obeyed. On Rada, the forests burned. A former Padawan crawled through the ashes, clutching a blue blade. Vader walked among the flames, his saber a crimson wound in the night. He did not run, he did not need to. The Force stretched before him like a net. Every breath drew the prey closer. The Padawan struck first, desperate. Their blades clashed blue. Hope against red hate. Sparks screamed into the smoke. For a moment, she saw the man behind the mask. The hero of the Clone Wars, Skywalker. Her lips formed his name. It cost her everything. The crimson blade slid through her chest. She fell without a sound. Vader looked down at the body. The wind carried ash across his armor, soft as snow. Something flickered in him, small, frail. A ghost in iron Padme's smile. Her laughter by the lake. The way her hand once fit in his dot. It burned him more than the lava ever did. He crushed it, buried it, let it rot in the dark. Next, he said, the Inquisitors rose like carrion crows. From the ashes, they hunted with hunger, but they feared him more than death. His shadow stretched across them all. He was their master, their doom. Their chains, Vader stalked through desecrated temples, his boots echoing in halls once filled with light. He watched statues topple. He burned the names of Jedi from the stone. Yet when he was alone, in the silence between stars, he felt it there. Crack in the armor. The ember that refused to die, Padme. Sometimes he reached for her name. It shattered in his throat. He told himself the Emperor was right, that love was weakness, that anger was strength. But every kill fed the hunger and left him emptier than before. Sidious watched from his throne, smiling. He saw the fracture. He feared it. He needed Vader, chained, broken, obedient. So he gave him war, blood, power, and Vader obeyed. The galaxy drowned in night. Temples burned. Hope withered. Yet in the farthest corner of the stars, a whisper stirred. A name, a child. A second chance the darkness had not foreseen. But for now, the shadow reigned, and in the void between breaths, something. Humans still screamed. Chapter 1-3 The Boy from the Moisture Feoremtha. Deserts stretched to the edge of forever. Sand rolled like waves beneath a merciless sun. Heat shimmered on the horizon, bending the world into mirages. Nothing grew here except silence and secrets. In a small homestead carved from dust, a child cried. His name was Luke Skywalker. No banners marked his birth. No crowds sang. The galaxy did not tremble. It did not even notice. But the Force did. It stirred faint as a breath, coiling through the sands like an unseen tide. Obi-Wan watched from the shadows. His robes were worn, the color of earth. His face was older, carved by grief and exile. He stood on the ridge as the sun sank, twin orbs bleeding gold across the sky. Their light washed over the child, innocent, unaware, born of love and ruin. Owen Lars stepped out of the house, a bundle in his arms. He said nothing to Obi-Wan. Words had long since burned away. Only a look passed between them, heavy as stone. Then Owen turned, disappearing into the hollow of his home. Carrying the child to a life of moisture and dust, Obi-Wan remained. He let the wind whip his cloak, let the sand sting his eyes. He stared at the sinking suns and thought of another boy, a boy with fire in his heart and stars in his eyes. A boy who dreamed of saving the galaxy and broke it instead. Anakin, the name was a wound. It would never heal. He heard his voice still. You are my brother, heard the roar of fire, the echo of screams, the rasp of a machine that once was a man. Obi-Wan closed his eyes. For a moment, the weight crushed him. Then he breathed, slow, steady. Because this boy, this Luke, was hope, not loud, not blazing. A quiet ember in a storm. Fragile, precious. He would protect that ember until his last breath. Night fell. Stars bloomed like cold flowers across the black sky. Somewhere up there, Vader hunted, a shadow devouring the light. The Empire grew fat on fear. Whole systems bent the knee. The Jedi were ghosts, scattered and silent. But here, in the cradle of sand, a new story waited. Luke slept in a room carved from rock, unaware of the blood that bought his safety. His tiny fists curled as if gripping a hilt he would one day hold. His breath was soft, peaceful, for now Obi-Wan turned away. His hut waited lonely on the edge of the dune sea. He would watch from afar, always from afar. That was his burden, his penance. His vow. The wind howled across the desert, carrying whispers only the Force could hear. Whispers of destiny. Whispers of a prophecy not yet done. And far above, the twin suns burned on and blinking, eternal. Chapter 14. Echoes of the Aribella Loin. The galaxy groaned beneath the weight of chains. Star destroyers prowled like wolves across the void. TIE fighters screamed through black skies. Worlds bent and broke. The Emperor's shadow stretched from core to rim, and in that shadow, hope should have died. It didn't. It flickered small, stubborn, defiant, a whisper at first, then a spark, then a flame. The rebellion was born, not in halls of power, but in caves and basements, in hushed voices over stolen comes. Farmers became fighters, smugglers became soldiers. A princess became a general. Her name, Leia Organa, daughter of Alderaan, voice of defiance in an age of silence. She moved like fire through the galaxy, rallying the broken, the beaten. Every victory was a wound carved into the Empire's steel. Every defeat a seed for the next uprising. And behind it all, Vader hunted. His presence was a black tide sweeping through space, his breath the sound of doom. But something else stirred. On Tatooine, the boy had grown. Luke Skywalker. No longer a whisper, but not yet a storm. He dreamed of stars, of freedom, of something greater than dust and sun. He did not know the galaxy waited for him. He did not know darkness had already marked his name, until the droids came, until the message played. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. The desert boy became a wanderer. The wanderer became a warrior. He learned the blade, the Force, the price of destiny. And somewhere deep in the void, a father felt the tremor of a son he did not know. A thread pulled tight. The prophecy stirred Hoth. Burned Alderaan died. The Death Star shattered like a false god, and hope roared louder. But the Empire was a serpent with 1,000 heads. Every victory birthed vengeance. Every triumph carved new graves. Then came Bespin. Clouds like white. Seas beneath a blood-red sun. A duel in shadowed halls. Blue against crimson. Light against night. Luke fought with fire in his veins and fear in his breath. He struck and failed. The dark was stronger. The truth was worse. I am your father. The words fell like blades. Not a lie, not a threat. A fact that shattered the boy's soul. Everything he believed broken in a whisper. The echo of it trembled through the force, across the stars. The galaxy held its breath. Luke fell, survived, escaped, but he was no longer the same. The boy was gone. The war was no longer simple. Light was no longer pure. Darkness no longer distant. The rebellion burned brighter. The empire struck harder. And in the center of it all, a shadow loomed, a father chained to hate, a son grasping for hope, a galaxy caught between them. The prophecy wept. Chapter 15. The heart of Eander, the forest moon, slept beneath its canopy of green. But above it death waited. The second Death Star hung in orbit, a black sun of steel. Half built, half live, its super laser coiled like a serpent ready to strike. The Emperor had woven his trap with patient cruelty. The rebels thought they came to destroy a weapon. They came to die. Luke Skywalker walked willingly into its jaws. He entered the throne room in chains, flanked by red guards who moved like statues of blood. Vader walked beside him, a shadow taller than fear. Luke looked at him not with hatred, not anymore, with sorrow, with hope. Two things Vader had long since buried. The doors opened. Sidious waited. The Emperor sat upon his throne like a spider, in a web of shadow. His smile was a wound carved into pallid flesh. The room pulsed with darkness, a gravity of malice that bent every breath toward despair. "Welcome, young Skywalker," he whispered. His voice slid like oil over stone. "I have been expecting you." Luke's chains fell with a clang. His saber lay across the throne's armrest, green fire caged in steel. Sidious gestured to it, eyes glittering. "A Jedi's weapon. You will take it. Strike me down. Fulfill your destiny." Luke did not move. His face was calm, but his heart was a storm. He could feel it, the dark side coiling like a serpent, tasting his fear, his anger, his love for his friends dying in the battle above. He crushed it down, whispering to himself the words of Ben, of Yoda. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. The battle raged outside. Star destroyers vomited fire into the void. Rebel cruisers shattered under the guns of the Empire. On the moon below, the ground shook with war cries and blaster fire. Ewoks died beneath walkers. Soldiers bled into the soil. And here, at the heart of it all, 3 lives decided the fate. Of all, Sidious leaned forward, voice a knife dripping honey. "Your fleet is lost. Your friends will die. And when they do, you will beg me to end your pain." Luke's fists clenched. Nails bit into his palms. He breathed slow, steady, but then the Emperor turned his gaze to Vader, and his words slid like venom. "Your father knows this truth. He is mine, just as you will be." The dam broke. Luke's saber flew to his hand, igniting with a scream of emerald fire. He struck. Vader moved, blade flashing crimson, catching the blow. The throne room erupted in light and thunder. Father and son collided like storm fronts, saber against saber, sparks raining like meteors. Each strike echoed through the Force, a cry of rage and fear and desperate love. "You cannot hide forever," Vader said, his voice a tomb's whisper. "Give in. It is the only way to save them. I will never join you." Luke's voice shook, with anger, with certainty, with something he could not name. They fought across the platform, sabers carving molten scars into the steel. Outside the viewport, war burned the sky. Inside, the true war raged, a war of blood, yes, but more. A war of souls. Luke leaped, struck, drove Vader back. His anger grew, each breath a furnace, each thought a blade. He threatened Leia. Leia, the word ignited something deeper, something wilder. "You have a sister," Vader said, almost curious. "Obi-Wan was wise to hide her. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will." The roar that tore from Luke's throat was not Jedi calm. It was a storm. He struck like a beast unchained, his saber a whirlwind. Vader staggered beneath the blows, forced back, down, crushed to his knees. Luke's blade severed his hand mechanic, fingers spinning across the floor. The sight froze him. Vader, broken, smoking, his own hand metal, just like his father's. The echo of a truth too cruel to speak. Sidious's laughter filled the chamber like fire. "Good, good. Kill him. Take your father's place at my side." Luke stood, trembling, saber raised. The darkness howled for blood. It whispered of power, of victory. His breath rasped. His heart pounded like war drums. Then dashed silence. He looked at his hand, at his father, at the Emperor's grin. No. The word fell like a stone into a black sea. He hurled the saber away. It clattered across the floor, extinguished. Luke turned, meeting Sidious's gaze with eyes clear as dawn. "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." Sidious's smile died. Then, "You will die." Lightning erupted from his hands. A storm of raw hate screaming through the air. It struck Luke, hurling him to the floor. Pain consumed him pure, endless, searing his bones, ripping his soul. He screamed, clawing at the steel, "Father, help me." Vader stood frozen, watching. Inside him, something cracked. The chains groaned. The darkness faltered. He heard the Emperor's laughter, heard his son's screams, heard a voice, "Long dead Anakin, please." And then he moved. The mask turned. The hands rose. Sidious felt it too late. The Black Titan seized him, lightning clawing across armor. The Emperor shrieked, power thrashing wild, tearing metal and flesh. Vader staggered, burning, breaking, but he did not stop. With a roar that shook the stars, he hurled the Sith into the abyss. Sidious vanished in light and screams. The storm ended. Vader collapsed. Chapter 16. The Chosen Ones. Eon Desolance fell. The throne room was a graveyard of smoke and ash. The Emperor was gone, cast into the void. Lightning still hissed in the air like dying serpents. The stench of scorched metal lingered, and in the center of it all, Vader lay broken. His armor sparked and smoldered, torn open by Sidious's fury. Circuits died, servos whined in agony. The machine was failing, and beneath it, so was the man. His breath rasped weaker now. Each inhale a jagged wound, each exhale a funeral bell. Luke knelt beside him. "Father," his voice shook. Not as a warrior, not as a Jedi, as a son. The mask turned. The black lenses caught the glow of the burning station. In them, Luke saw himself small, fragile, and yet hope. Hope that even now, in this ruin, the man he once was could return. "Help me. Take this mask off," Luke whispered. Vader's voice was a hollow wind. "No, you'll die. Nothing can stop that now." Luke's hands trembled as they found the locks. "Please, let me see you, with my own eyes." For a moment, silence, then a nod. The locks released with a hiss. The mask lifted. Beneath, the black steel was not a monster, not a Sith, just a man-pale, scarred, hollowed by years of darkness. Eyes once burning with rage now glimmered with something gentler. Something lost, Anakin Skywalker. His breath came ragged, unassisted now, each gasp a thread fraying to nothing. But he smiled, weak, worn, real. Luke, the word was soft, almost fragile. You were right about me. Tears streaked the boy's face, cutting through grime and blood. I couldn't save you. Anakin's fingers brushed his son's cheek, shaking, tender as a ghost. You already have. The stars burned beyond the viewport. The battle raged on. But here, time slowed. There was no empire, no war, only a father and a son at the edge of everything. Anakin's eyes closed. His voice faded like dawn retreating. Into night, tell your sister, you were right. And then dash, silence. No scream, no roar, just breath, breaking into stillness. Luke bowed his head. For a moment the galaxy felt smaller, colder. He gathered his father's body into his arms, heavy with armor and memory, and carried him away from the fire. Behind him, the Death Star trembled on the brink of death. Ahead, the hangar loomed like a wound in the sky. Luke placed Anakin on the shuttle's deck, flames painting his face in shades of grief and gold. When the station fell, it fell with fury. A sun imploding, a crown of fire consuming its own throne. But Luke flew through the storm, bearing a single, fragile truth. The prophecy was fulfilled, not with power, not with conquest, but with love, and the galaxy turned, unaware that a shadow had died so a spark could live. Chapter 17. The ashes of the Rapubl war was over, but the galaxy did not cheer. Not truly, not all at once. There was no great trumpet to herald peace, only silence and smoke. The Death Star's fire faded into a shattered sky. The Emperor was gone. Vader was gone. And with them, the Empire began to fracture like glass beneath a frozen sea. Yet victory felt strange, thin, fragile worlds that once trembled. Under imperial boots now burned in chaos, governors fled. Warlords rose, power, torn from the throne, scattered like ash on the wind, and in that ash, people searched for hope. They searched for the Republic, but the Republic was gone. It had not died with Palpatine. It had died long before, rotted from within, bled dry by greed and war. What returned now was only its ghost, wearing borrowed flesh senators spoke of. Rebirth, of rebuilding. But their voices were thin, drowned beneath the roar of a galaxy that had forgotten how to trust, and the Jedi gone. The Order lay in ruins, its halls reduced to rubble, its wisdom scattered to dust. 1,000 years of light, extinguished in a single lifetime. OBI-1. Yoda, all ghosts now. Even Anakin, especially Anakin. The prophecy fulfilled in blood and fire. Yet what did it mean? Balance, or just the end of everything? Luke wondered. He stood among the stars, watching fleets drift like bones in a cosmic grave. His heart ached with questions that no one could answer. Was this what destiny wanted? Was this the will of the Force saw its last cry before silence? On Endor, the flames rose. Vader's armor burned on a pyre beneath a sky of stars. Luke watched the smoke twist upward, carrying what was left of a father he barely knew. There were no hymns, no temple bells, only the crackle of fire and the whisper of leaves. Leia stood apart, eyes heavy with secrets she did not yet speak. Han watched her, watched Luke, trying to understand what none of them could say. They smiled, they danced, They pretended the war was done, but the ashes clung. The questions lingered. Was this peace, or just another pause before the storm? The galaxy turned slowly in its sleep, dreaming of order, of chaos, of freedom, of chains. Somewhere in those dreams, the Force murmured, low, uncertain, and the stars kept their secrets. Chapter 1-8, The Force That Sleeps in Siloins, Either Galaxy exhaled. War ended, but peace did not come like a song. It came like a whisper, thin, brittle, almost afraid to be heard. Worlds rebuilt, cities rose from rubble. Names of the dead were carved into stone. Some were remembered, most were not. In the silence, the Force dreamed. It drifted through, shattered temples, over battlefields grown cold. It lingered in forests where Ewoks sang, in deserts where moisture farms baked beneath twin suns. It touched the ashes of old Republic halls, the broken spires of Coruscant, the bones of fallen Jedi, always moving, always waiting once. It burned bright. It chose champions, gave prophecies, wove destinies in threads of light and shadow. Now it lay still, as if exhausted from the blood and fire it had endured. Perhaps it slept. Perhaps it simply listened. Luke felt it when he closed his eyes, soft as a breath, faint as a heartbeat. He stood alone on a quiet world, the twin suns of Tatooine sinking behind him, and wondered what came next. The Jedi were gone. He was the last echo of a dead song. Could he learn it again? Could he teach it? Should he? He thought of Anakin, of a prophecy fulfilled not by glory but by grief, not by conquest but by compassion. He was the chosen one, and he was broken. Luke wondered if that was the fate of all who bore such names. Leia laughed somewhere behind him, her voice warm, her steps light in the sand. Han cursed softly as a droid sparked and sputtered. Life went on, it always did. But the shadow lingered, quiet as dust in the corners of light, far beyond, in the black between stars. New whispers stirred, not of Sith, not yet, not fully, but of hunger, of ambition, of the endless dance of darkness and dawn. The Force felt it too. It would wake again. It always did. For peace was never more than the pause between storms. And so the galaxy turned. Suns rose and fell. Children were born, and with them new hopes, new fears, new wars yet to come. In the deep silence of the cosmos, the Force murmured its last words, not loud, not proud, but soft, like a secret no one heard. He was the chosen one, and he was broken. Then nothing, only the sound of stars breathing